Welcome to Soul of Travel. I am very excited today to be sitting down with Habiba El Kasri, and she is the founder and CEO of Asgunfa Impact Traveling, and she works in Morocco and is a really great advocate for sustainability and community-based tourism. So I'm really excited to dive into those subjects with you today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Christine. I'm happy to be here and share with you all my experience and my travels in Morocco. Thank you all for listening too. My name is Habiba. I'm born and raised in Morocco, and I have been traveling for a long time in Morocco and beyond. I have lived in 6 different countries. And during my studies and my corporate life, I have been living and settling in 6 different countries where I was really deep dive into the cultures and traditions. And I love everything about traveling, either sharing our culture, our traditions, our food, and our experiences. That is so empowering, either for a traveler or for the people in the destination. That's about me.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your travel experiences. And I can definitely see how having the opportunity to live so many places creates that desire to really create deeper, authentic connections. I think that's always been one of those things that I have loved, the opportunity to go and be somewhere for, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, but, much beyond that just quick travel experience, but where you can take time to find like a favorite walk or coffee shop, and you start to like connect with people on a regular basis, and you start to experience things as if you live there and when you do live there, and it just gives you such a deeper appreciation. And then I think when you've had those experiences, you really crave for others to have those experiences, even when they do travel. So we try to replicate that connection and that authentic way of being in a shorter travel experience. So I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but when you or how do you think the travel bug was sparked in you? When did you really first start traveling, and when did you know that something like studying abroad and traveling and living abroad is something that you wanted to be a part of your life?
Thanks to my parents, I had the opportunity to travel from a very young age to other destinations than Morocco, and that's really opened my eyes to the world. We were in Thailand, Malaysia, and Egypt, and since a very young age, and I realized how our mind is more open and how we learn so much while traveling than by staying in your country, and you bring so much also to your country by traveling. So um uh, so that 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 was the beginning of my love of traveling. And then when I had my high school degree, I decided to do my studies in France, business studies, and that's where I took each and every opportunity to do my exchanges in United States, Germany, Spain, and also do my internships abroad. So to get the most of each of the countries that I visit. Of course, traveling for 2 weeks or so is also a kind of traveling, but you get most of the country when you're settled there. And that's exactly the balance that I wanted to find when traveling, is to when traveling for a short amount of time, you get the most of the country than someone who is settled there. And the best way to do so is to follow the steps of a local, who will take you to the best places, to make you taste some delicious food, and to share with you his culture. And that's how I started myself organizing trips to my family and friends.
Yeah, I love that. I think, like I said before, it just when you start to see the opportunity to travel in that way, I think there's something else that opens up in you. And I think a lot of times we think about travel as being a very fast-paced activity, and we want to make sure we're seeing a lot of things. And then when we have a moment to sit still and connect with someone and have a conversation and learn about maybe the food they're sharing with us, and then maybe that leads to conversation about their childhood or their family or their education or artisan craft or farming, or all these different lifestyle pieces that you wouldn't normally interact with. And then I think once we have those experiences, we really see the value in slowing down when we travel. I would love to start to talk about your company and the trips you design. And the first thing I wanted to ask you is about the name of your company. I know that when I created Lotus Sojourns, I spent a lot of time trying to think of words that kind of evoked what I wanted travelers to experience just through the name. Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose what you chose?
Sure. Um, so my I wanted to start this company first to open the borders of my country and to show people Morocco in an authentic way, far away from the touristic traps. And it was just before Corona hit, and during these times, it was it was a really fascinating time to think through what we wanted to bring to the travelers by setting up a travel company to Morocco, not to be like any other travel agency, but to bring value to each and every traveler. And so, as you said, it was a lot of brainstorming to really match what we want to bring with the meaning of this travel agency that is targeting Morocco for now, but can be far beyond other borders in all developing countries. And Asgunfa, it comes from this Berber language used in south of Morocco by nomads. And this language is still used until today when you travel, for example, to the Sahara Desert. And it means to relax, to enjoy your trip in this language. And that's exactly what I wanted to deliver with the company that I was setting up in this moment of a global pandemic. And also it was a time to go beyond this relaxation and beyond the safety of a trip, to have an impact on these people and on this destination that we visit.
Mhm.
And so that's how I came with Asgunfa, asgunfa.com or .ch. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. I think it's just, I love the stories behind things, and I know that people are often very intentional. And so, thank you for sharing that journey for why you chose that. I know that you have mentioned that you're really passionate about kind of getting people into communities and really getting people off the beaten path in Morocco. Can you share why you think that's so important and what that offers travelers and the communities that you engage in as you travel?
Um, Again, I want to go back a little bit on time when I was setting up the company, and at that time I realized that we are in a fascinating times of a global pandemic where everything was stopped. And I realized that the impact of tourism in my country on the people, businesses, and the environment was huge. We were everything was stopped at that time, and the whole world was impacted. So even each and every business was there and was feeling this impact like any time else. So I wanted to create this business so that when borders will be open, we will take this momentum to to impact positively the destination by giving them back all the benefits that they can offer. Meaning that we I wanted to make sure that each and every travel money that you spend in a destination stays in the destination by offering experiences that are made by locals and offered by locals to empower women, youth that are traveling for 60% in the tourism industry. And we felt like everything was lost during these 2 years of a global pandemic. And that's exactly what I wanted to make sure that at the end of these times, tourism will come back at some point. I was sure about that. We didn't know the timeline, that's for sure. Anyone does, but the idea is to make sure that when it comes back to learn about the effect of the tourism industry in the destination, either for on the people, but also on our planet.
Mhm. And thank you for sharing that, because I think, as we're looking at the impact of the pandemic globally because of the loss of tourism, it definitely impacted many destinations at different levels. And I think there was great loss across the board. But I know, particularly with some of my connections in Morocco, that it has been definitely greatly impacted. And there has been, kind of a false restarts and shutdowns, and that also in itself has created quite a lot of financial impact. And so I really appreciate you sharing what the importance of tourism really is, especially in rural communities and all across the country. But it really does make a huge impact, and I think it's something that many of us can't even really relate to or understand what it means to have a year or 2 years of travelers not in your country. Um, so when you are creating your trips and you're really wanting to create that impact and empower people and protect the environment, I would love for you to share a little bit about the ways that you do, in fact, work to empower people in communities. I know on your website you mentioned that you work with local guides and female cooperatives, which are two things that I really work with as well in designing my trips. And then also really working to ensure that all of the people you work with have fair wages, fair living wages. Can you talk about how you make those choices and why you think that has such a good positive impact?
Sure. That's a really important question, and that's why we exist actually. And before creating any trip, and that was before creating the business, the partners there are the most valuable assets in the company. And throughout my travels and my experiences, I had the chance to meet really meaningful people that most of them are family owned companies or lodges or riads or restaurants that will give their heart into their business by welcoming travelers. And that's exactly the type of people that I'm targeting and I want to have in my trips. And once I had the different partners that I want to work with and fit the chart, I would say, of Asgunfa, I designed the trip based on the experiences that I sourced for now. So let's say, for example, for a trip of 5 days that will engage adventure, for example, and I will I will make sure to meet the expectation of the traveler with the experiences that I have available and take them to the accommodations that I source, and they will also go to the restaurants that are really owned by locals. And that's mainly how I make sure that the travel dollars stay in the country, basically. um, and also the other part, and really important part, is to work with nonprofit organizations. um, so the first, I work with three main nonprofit organizations so far. The first one is a High Atlas Foundation, to make sure to offset the carbon footprint by planting trees with the farmers, for the farmers. It's not only offsetting the carbon footprint, but it's for sure helping the farmers to get more trees and more fruits on the long run. So traveling will always have a carbon impact on that. That's something that is for sure. And I would always um, share with the travelers to stay longer in this destination and to offset their carbon footprint. And the other side, to plant the trees. So that's the first action that the traveler can make while traveling. The second one is during the trip, we would visit female cooperatives to empower the women, not only to see what they are doing, but to engage with them in a longer discussion. We will not uh, stay for half an hour, but we will stay for 3 hours. We will share with them a cup of tea, share with them discussions with your guide. And that's something that is so much valuable for the people there. And the third thing is to um, to make sure to have local guides there that will not take you to touristic traps. And that's something that unfortunately you would find in every destination like Morocco. And that's something that I'm fighting about, and would like, and I'm working with a nonprofit organization called Picala, that takes you by bike to hidden gems of Marrakesh, for example, either by bike or by foot, depending on the traveler. And that will also improve the employment in the country, because they are most of them, they are students in the University of Tourism. And they know very much their city. So that's the best way of traveling, and that's how I want to make sure that the experience for the traveler, but also for the destination, is positively impactful.
Yeah, thank you for walking us through that. I really love the idea, as you mentioned, of visiting the female cooperatives and not just going and maybe seeing handcraft goods for like a half an hour and thinking you're supporting and walking away, but really taking the time to create connection and have meaningful conversations. I know that that has been probably my favorite moment across the board, is the time that I have spent connecting with female artisans all around the world. One, learning about the craft that they do teaches us so much about the destination, the materials and how they're harvested and how traditions have been passed down. But then I also love those moments that end up, as we like earn each other's trust and we start sharing again, kind of, I mentioned this before, but like about caring for our children, or maybe what our concerns are for our families. And And then all of a sudden, some of these threads that are common between us start to show up, and the connection that that creates, I think, is really powerful. What have some of your travelers shared about those experiences? Have they had unexpected connections or stories that they didn't expect after some of those times spent together?
That's the most rewarding part of creating Asgunfa is the feedback from travelers once they really experience this kind of trips. In the beginning, they are really interested into the destination, into traveling into Morocco, and that's it. And by learning that there is more about the country, and by taking them step by step in deep dive into the country, they are fascinated about the experience that they have, and the joy and the learning that they share at the end of their trip is so much valuable, and takes me and give me a lot of confidence and a lot of encouragement to go even beyond. You know, we had some really hard time where we had closure of borders, reopening, and even during these times of COVID, a lot of travelers went to Morocco and experienced that. Um, and you can feel and all the feedback that I had from travelers, learning about their culture, their tradition. They dance with them. They put their hand into rug making, for example, or you know, just sharing stories. Also, even if you are not sharing the same language, but you know, it's such a meaningful experience that it goes beyond the language barrier.
Mhm. Yeah, I have so many memories of those moments in my mind. And in my mind, we're always speaking the same language, but I realize that we're not. But like you said, it just transcends any language. And then I go back and I think, like, how were we actually communicating with one another? But it just unfolds. And, often the guide is able to be a translator or, things, but sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's even a local language or dialect that maybe the guide doesn't speak, but still somehow that connection happens. And I agree, much like you, like after you see that happen and you're so I'm so filled with joy. I can see that you're so filled with joy from it, and you want so many more people to have that experience, and it really reignites your passion to just keep pushing forward, especially in times like right now, because we know how deeply powerful those experiences are. So thank you so much for sharing that. I just think that that's so valuable, and um, I'm I always love hearing about those experiences from others. You talked a little bit about climate impact and some of the eco-friendly lodging and things like that you build into your experiences, but are there other things that you consider that are more from that environmental and climate angle that you bring into your trips?
I would um, I'm implementing that and included that more and more during my trips, depending again on the traveler and his will to make more or less impact during his trip. So the basic is what I just shared with High Atlas Foundation to plant trees with the farmers, and that's also something that the traveler can be engaged to. It's only a few times a year, but it's something that also the traveler can be engaged. And now also I have a new partner called Rural Tourism and they are building itineraries that engage the environment, to protect the environment by doing some trails, going for bike roads, and in also some protected areas, by really going on a few people only going to these places and experiencing that. So for now, it's only in trial mode, even for the partner that is there, and there is really more to see than Marrakesh, and the all the cities that we know in Morocco. But even for me, it's a new destination that I'm learning to work with, and learning also to experience. And it has so much to offer by their national parks, by the different activities that they propose. So yes, depending, to answer your question, yes, depending on the traveler, we can propose other activities that engage with the environment.
Yeah. And I think one thing I've found that's been really interesting when you look at trying to find properties or restaurants or things that have ways that they support environment and create an impact, that a lot of these destinations have been really doing this in an innovative way for a long time. And it's maybe not measurable as sustainability, but it's just a part of their way of living, like water saving techniques, or like using reusable or renewable building materials, because a lot of times people are sourcing found objects, or they're already using natural materials for construction. Are there any properties or places that you go that are good examples of that, or that you have been surprised by some of the innovation that they maybe already have in place?
Definitely, and I'm surprised and even impressed sometimes by these accommodations that are using the principle of sustainable goals without knowing it, because it's just in their the way they are doing, because it's cost saving too, and they are doing waste management by themselves, without any looking in any regulation or any certification. They are proposing only local food from their garden, for example. They are using solar energy because they have nothing. It's more efficient to use solar energy than usual energy. Or they are using clean water to their business. So there are sometimes just things and um, uh, sustainable goals that they are achieving without even noticing it, and that's what I found very fascinating in this kind of accommodations that are really small, and you can find them somewhere in the rural areas.
Yeah, I think that's been really, there have been a lot of conversations around that, especially as like larger operators are looking at getting certified and to be bee tourism and be certified, and like all these different ways as operators look to have that in their own businesses. And we're looking out at these suppliers that we use and properties, and like you said, they don't know that they're checking anything off a list. They're just living the way that they live. But by nature of that way of living, it is already more sustainable. And so I think that just creates some really interesting conversations and some ways to begin to explore answers across the board, is to really look to communities that are meeting their needs. Like you said, like they can only have solar power because there's no other option, and they have to think creatively about building materials because that's the way they have to do it to live. And so I think that's such a just a I think a unique experience that you start to notice as you are traveling, especially getting off the beaten path. Well, I would love for you to share a little bit maybe about, since we are talking about getting off the beaten path in Morocco, like one of your favorite destinations that you think travelers don't go to very often that you'd like to highlight. I know for me, I'm lucky I get to see professionals that are exploring different parts of the country. And sometimes they'll show a picture and I'm like, how is that Morocco? I didn't expect, those mountains or this landscape. But what places would you love for people to know about that they might not already be familiar with?
Well, there is a region in Morocco that I started exploring only 6 months ago, and I found it very fascinating and very diverse. It's the region of Soutmassa. It's actually so people know Agadir and their resorts and their beautiful beaches with white sand dunes, and it's a nice city. But when you go far, a little bit further than the city in the region, you will find some fascinating national parks with a reserve of arganry, this tree that is very known in the whole Mediterranean sea or Mediterranean region, that gives you, the oil of argan, or for the beauty of your skin. And it's really rich, and you find these goats eating these trees, and then it's an ecosystem that is so diverse, and only locals know that. Even me, I'm from Morocco, I just discovered this region by traveling more and looking for more of the beaten path experiences. And that's also a region that is investing a lot into the ecologies and the infrastructure to make it more attracting to local tourists and foreign tourists too. You will find also the national park of Talamsna, um, which is in northern part of Morocco, where you will find the most beautiful trails of the country, with natural springs, and you can basically swim while drinking the water. It's really clear water, and you can drink it, and it feels so good actually. So during the summer, I always like to take people there, and basically you need to be with the local to experience this national park. And that's something that is just fascinating. So these two regions for me are are more than only experiencing Morocco, but it goes far beyond that. With their also hidden beaches, or hidden fishermen villages, where you can eat fish from directly from the sea. That's some examples that I have right now in mind, but there's more of it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. I think it's so helpful because I think a lot of times as travelers we look for, the things that everybody talks about, and so maybe they will end up only going to one or two places in Morocco, or just coming for a few days and traveling on to somewhere else. But when you are talking about sustainability and staying longer, then people are asking the questions, well, what else is here for me? And I think that's when you really start to find these experiences that you're mentioning, where people start to realize how much each destination has to offer if we really slow down and look for those opportunities. Um, as we kind of get to the end of our conversation, I would love to talk to you a little bit about the process for you of actually bringing your company to life. I know there's so many people who are passionate about travel and maybe who start to see to have a vision for what they would like to create, and it's such a daunting process. Are you willing to share a little bit about what this journey has been like for you and the reward that you've seen? Because I think a lot of times people have this idea, especially for a very passion driven business, and it's overwhelming to think about it, or we think it's just like a passion project, but it can never be a reality. Um, do you have any words of encouragement for people that maybe have had a similar dream or vision?
Sure. First, just go for it. Just follow your passion, follow your heart, and when we work with passion, the reward, you will for sure see a reward. Maybe not financially in the beginning, but you will definitely see or feel a reward internally and in terms of satisfaction. That's my broad answer. But personally, when I started this business professionally, that was after 5 years of thinking about it and only doing it for people, because of I love the country, I love my country, and because I love anything related to organization. So I really thought about it, and at the end, I started as a professional travel designer. Uh, only after a lot of thinking, and I think we don't need that much thinking in the beginning, but just to try and maybe fail, but at least you won't have a regret to do it, because we each day that I'm working on this business, and each day that I'm interested with travelers or partners, I I see a reward and I see satisfaction, and that's something that is not measurable. So, and today my vision is that I want to give back to my country what it has brought to me, and also to share with the people this the richness of what this country has to offer. Um, and beyond that, throughout this pandemic, I made so many good connections with other partners that are doing the same thing in other destinations, like Kenya, like Zimbabwe, um, like so many other, like Sri Lanka, so many other destinations that we don't hear about so much, but they are so rich, and so and can offer so much. So by having this kind of connections and this kind of partnerships, we can create an ecosystem where each each one can bring its value to the travel industry. And I think this is so much valuable for anyone who wants to travel, to go beyond what we can find in on the web. Because when we plan traveling, we spend so much time reading blogs, and it's it's sometimes very frustrating. We open 36 tabs, and at the end we find ourselves in this touristic, I would say, traps, because the that's where we find the most confidence, because there are really famous brands and only famous websites that will tell you that. But having the guts to go beyond that, and to really give confidence to people who have small businesses, and fight for their vision and their values, it's so much valuable, I would say.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. I'm so glad I asked you that question. I think I love everything that you said, and I have all these quotes on sticky notes on my computers that feel like they are aligned so much with what you said. I have one that says, "You never fail. You either succeed or you learn," which is a Nelson Mandela quote. And I think that I love that you said just kind of jump in and maybe don't think about it so much. If you really have something that lights you up, to just to go for it and see what you can create, because you're going to be learning along the way, no matter what, kind of no matter how much research you do. I also know this from experience that you just have to get moving and try things. So thank you for sharing that. I think the more people that are creating travel from that space, the amazing experiences that people get to have as travelers connecting with destinations. So I really appreciate that. So if people would love to travel with you after hearing all about the way you've described your country, how can they reach out to you?
My website, asgunfa.com, or Instagram. I always post beautiful reels of my country, beautiful pictures, and I'm very joinable. If you need any tips about Morocco and how to travel sustainably or other destination, I can put you in contact with other destinations of people that have the same vision than me. So yeah, don't hesitate to contact me for any query. Thank
Yeah,
you
and
so much.
I know that to be true, because I know that's how we found each other, is following each other on Instagram. And I just was continually inspired by the content that you were creating and the support that you showed me virtually for my business. And so I really appreciate that way of connecting. It's really, really valuable as well. The last thing I have is just a couple of rapid fire questions for our audience to get to know you a little bit more as a traveler and learn about some things that inspire you. So we'll step into that part of our conversation.
Sure.
What is your favorite book or movie that offers you a travel escape or inspires you to adventure?
Ah, this is very hard to think. My favorite book is Nature. To be honest, the more I travel, the more I want to travel, and just going for a hike or going for a walk inspires me to go more and opens my eyes more. I love learning by doing, and nature offered me so much that I want to give it back to others. That's
Thank
my
you.
aim.
I love that so much. Yeah, that's beautiful. What is always in your suitcase or backpack when you're traveling?
I always um, yeah, I always I think today our phone is something that we cannot take out, either to share what we experience to the world, or to find your way, or uh, I cannot imagine myself without my smartphone sometimes, and that's something that is so fascinating in these times, because for sure it puts it can put a barrier with the locals, but you need to go beyond that, and having your smartphone can make your life easier and can save you from anything. So yeah, I would say my smartphone is it's something that will always be with me.
Yeah. I think about my travels before we had that technology and after, and it's so different. And sometimes I long for like that like ability to just be so lost and disconnected, but at the same time there's something in the security of it. And then like you said, being able to, I remember being in the Amazon, and I was speaking with a little girl, and she asked me about my daughters, and I could show her a picture, and it was so amazing. And then she like took the picture and showed it to her mom, and like showed her that was my daughters. And so, yeah, I think technology sometimes gets a bad rap when we're traveling, but I think it can also create some interesting connections as well.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite or most memorable destination?
My most memorable trip so far was when I traveled for the first time in Taradant in Morocco. And it was for the first time that I traveled by myself in my country and in a place that I never have been before. And I had so many amazing connections with the locals that are so different from the people that I used to talk to or to interact with. I'm in Casablanca, which is the big city, and everyone is very pushy or so. But in these places, I was in Taridand, in Safra, that they have so much to offer. They open to you their door, they share with you their food. And I found it really amazing how the heart of the people is filled with love and sharing. And even and it was uh, in the middle of the pandemic, and people were just happy to live, and they were confident about the future. They were optimistic. They were even expanding their house to welcome more travelers. And really, they were even investing more, even if they didn't have any revenue. And they wanted to show me how they do it and have feedback. And I was like, this is so fascinating, and I was so grateful to live that at this moment. So yeah, that's something that I will always remember.
That's such a good example of how healing travel can be, and experiencing the world through other people's eyes brings us new light, I think.
Yeah.
Um, where do you still long to visit?
Wow, so much. um, I, I want to the Latin American culture is really fascinating for me, and I love Spanish, and I would love to live in this continent for a few years, to learn more about them, and to I know each and every country is different, even in this continent, but to really take time to live with them, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. So if I have the opportunity to do so, I will be more than happy.
Excellent. I hope that that comes your way. I love spending time in Central and South America as well. So, what do you eat that immediately connects you to a place that you've been?
There is lots of connections. There is so when I make couscous at home, I remember the Fridays that I spent with my family and everyone sharing the same plate, and it reminds me when we were young, and Friday noon is religion, where we need to be all family together, and even people would come unexpectedly just to share with you the couscous. And that's something that now living abroad, I really forget about it. And uh, sharing plates, even today, after this COVID time, it's something that is unexpected. But it's something in our culture, and I'm always when I have a couscous anywhere in the world, I remember this exact moment of Friday noon where we share this couscous with family.
Thank you. So many good stories coming out of this part of our conversation. I appreciate it. Who was the person that inspired or encouraged you to set out and explore the world?
My father, um, he he was the first. He gave us the opportunity to travel beyond Morocco and to faraway places that kids our age didn't have the chance to do so. And also he because of his work, he also traveled a lot, and we were traveling with him. So I was really inspired by how he had a very, even if he was not speaking English or Spanish, but I was just seeing how he can communicate with anyone, just because he had a good vibe of communicating. And because of that, I it opened my eyes to the world, and also to not be afraid to go beyond our comfort zone, and just go for it and meet people, because people are at the end people, and they are really happy to talk to you.
Thank you. The last one is, if you could take an adventure with one person, fictional or real, alive or past, who would it be?
My husband. Yeah, he is my friend, my I love going for adventures, and I feel even if I really like to travel by myself, but being with someone where with whom you share so much for for the best or for the worst is something that you won't you will have only good experiences at the end. So yeah, uh, yeah, that's he is the person that I would love to have by my side.
Well, thank you, Habiba, so much for this conversation. It really spoke to my heart, and I hope that it inspires people to visit Morocco, and also everywhere they visit to just kind of look for the hidden gems and dig a little deeper and try to get to know a culture a little bit better.
Super. Very glad to share everything with you and for with the listeners. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share all that. And I'm looking forward for your next adventure and our on the travel industry in general. Uh, yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
there's so much in store, I'm sure. So thank you.
Yeah.